I wanted to work in business, and my family always jokes about this because when I was maybe 7 years old for Halloween, I wanted to be a businesswoman and I don't know, wore one of my mom's suits, kind of belted up and glasses and a bun. And that was what I wanted to do.
All right, you're listening to HawkeTalk. I'm here today with Avery Akkineni. How are you?
I am great. It's so nice to be here with you, Eric. I love the big hawk mural behind you.
Yeah, got to do it. You can't, it's you would think I'm in marketing. Hit the hawk on my head, the hawk behind me. I've said that this is like surgically glued to my head these days. So to kick it off, I just assume the day you're born, you come out in the delivery room, start judging all the branding of the hospital, making them change all their advertising practices. And that's how we kicked this off. And from then on, you were a marketer, right?
Yeah, exactly. My first 3 words were social at the center. And it's just been the same ever since.
Yeah, exactly.
I have had a very interesting journey to get here. I have spent the most of my professional life focused in the world of digital and social media. I'm currently the chief marketing officer at Vayner, but certainly wasn't born that way. It's been an interesting 35-year journey to get here. And I'm thrilled to be here and joining you in the HawkeTalk community to talk about a couple of things I've picked up along the way.
Awesome. Well, so let's start from the beginning. Where are you from originally?
Originally from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, awesome. And were you born to a creative family, a business family? What was the upbringing like?
Yeah, my dad is actually an educator. So he ran schools. So always grew up being obsessed with reading and books and thinking education was the most important thing in the world, which is such a gift. It's summer. So I always think about summer reading. We would just read 100 books in the summer. And I was obsessed with learning different things and almost traveling different places in my mind through books. So I really grew up in a family that prioritized that. We prioritized a lot of time outside, community, and that's something that I think has been a really nice through line throughout my life. I'm actually sitting in Utah right now. My husband and I have a little place out here where we like to get outside and enjoy some summer reading and summer break time. So that's one thing that hasn't changed too much across my life.
I love Utah. We had a place in Eden for 7 years, and then just sold it last year. So you grew up going outside a lot. And Nashville's an awesome place too. And so again, as we said, so is Utah. And so with all the reading and all the outside, as a kid, what were the sort of things you gravitated towards? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to work in business, and my family always jokes about this because when I was maybe 7 years old for Halloween, I wanted to be a businesswoman and I don't know, wore one of my mom's suits, kind of belted up and glasses and a bun. And that was what I wanted to do. I think I wanted to be a lawyer growing up or someone who worked in business. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't know that many women at the time who were power women, but the few I did, I idolized and looked up to. My aunt worked at a bank, and I was like, that's so cool. I'm going to do that one day and get to dress up for work. And that was always something that caught my eye and caught my attention. And then as I, was in high school and college doing different internships, learning about sort of the professional world, I loved it. I was that person first in, last out at work, just hand raising for all different types of projects. And I've always just really loved the world of being a professional.
And so where did that come from? I mean, again, you had an educator of a dad, you were, loved books, being outdoors, stay-at-home mom. What drew you to business as a kid?
That's a great question because I wasn't very exposed to it. But I think I was interested in the way that made the world go around. We did get the newspaper every day, the New York Times, and I would track different things and read different things and loved that. I was impacted by also media and what we saw on TV. And I was like, that's cool. New York City, suits. Not the show, but just literally people wearing suits. And it felt really different than Nashville and where I was growing up. So I think I was interested and intrigued by that. And probably that influenced me to be interested in, the world of business professionally. And it's something that as I got more and more into, I enjoyed more and more.
And so when did that start? How old were you when you were wearing your mom's clothes and doing that stuff?
That was when I was 7, when I dressed up as a businesswoman for Halloween. And okay. I don't know, we should psychoanalyze where I got that because my parents thought it was hilarious because I just had no exposure to people who were doing that. And then it kind of continued. I would be interested in, like I said, like business news and things like that, like watching like the stock market with my dad. And when I was in high school, I wanted to do an internship. I did an internship at Live Nation, which, Nashville, Live Nation was right on Music Row. I could walk there from my high school. And I loved just understanding the dynamics of like what moved ticket sales, like which ones would sell out right away, which ones wouldn't, how they could impact that. At the time, like show posters were a big thing. I would be like very interested in the show posters and like have an opinion on which one would do well. And, as I spent time learning more about the music industry, I learned that in fact, it's a very hard business, but a lot of the principles of how to sell out shows and, how to make things cool, like translated pretty directly into the world of marketing.
Yeah. It's funny. I almost ended up working at Live Nation too. I got offered a job there after selling my first e-commerce company and then ended up at Science with Dollar Shave Club instead. But was like that close to being in business development at Live Nation on the Ticketmaster side too.
You would probably kill it in business development at Live Nation, but I don't think it's a very easy role. Like in Nashville, there's a lot of music. No. They call it Music City for a reason. A lot of my friends' parents were like famous musicians and, very in that scene. It is honestly a very tough business, but a very interesting, incredible business because you see how it changes people's like hearts and minds and lives. And there's nothing better than being at a live show. I was just at a LCD sound system actually last night in Utah. And let me tell you, they still slap.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I agree. My first company was a music company. And so did artist development. And it was so much fun. I did find myself getting a little jaded to it and wanted to just enjoy music and get away from making it my job too. And that's what ended up happening. But yeah, it's crazy how it ticks and like what happens in that industry. And so interned there, and then did you end up going to college? So that was high school, right? When you were interning at Live Nation?
That was when I was in high school, which was, by the way, very unusual that a high schooler like wanted an unpaid internship, but I did. My parents said I could have it. Yeah. And then I went to college. I was also very influenced, I think, by watching like Laguna Beach. I was obsessed with the idea of Southern California, and I wanted to go to college there. So I ended up going to University of San Diego. Which is just the most beautiful place ever, and had such a great group of friends and a great community and just like a really dream college experience in a lot of ways. And, when I was in San Diego, I fell in love with being in California, just how different people were there versus growing up in Nashville, what the vibe was, and started doing, my college internship was actually at Morgan Stanley, which after that summer, I was like, this finance is not where Avery will be spending the rest of her life. I learned a lot, but it was, very clearly like not what I was all about. But that was, I guess, my first experience in sort of suits. And
what didn't you like about it?
It was, it still is like
And what didn't you like about it? What didn't fit you?
For one, you actually had to wear pantyhose at the time. It was like literally required to like wear heels and pantyhose. I was like, this is kind of weird. And it's a very male-driven type of company, or it was at the time. Again, this was like 15 years ago. And just felt like very formulaic and they were certainly not like seeking out the intern's opinion. It was like just doing total like task stuff that I was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me. And it's kind of like a pay your dues organization, which absolutely makes sense. A lot of the leadership was kind of what you would expect. And while I appreciated that, and I actually think it was really helpful when considering like where I wanted to go work after college, I decided very quickly that wasn't for me. Funny enough, my husband's first job out of college was at Morgan Stanley in investment banking, and he loved it. So that goes to show you there's multiple paths.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the thing that a lot of high school, college age kids, even early 20s miss, is just going and trying stuff and learning what is the job, what isn't. And like learning what you don't want to do is super important. I had two girls come in from University of Arizona where I went, and they just were like shadowing me for the day. They do this like once a semester. They send me one or two students to come shadow me. Always down to do it. And that day I decided to like really set up a day in the life, like sat here on a podcast for an hour, took a bunch of exec meetings, reviewed our finances with our CFO, like did like, this is what it is to run a business. At the end of the day, both of them looked at me and like, yeah, we don't want to be entrepreneurs. I'm like, that's okay. Like, it's good that you learned that now versus going and trying to start something.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I think trying different things.
I think it's so important.
Oh, sorry, I think I interrupted you. I think trying different things is so important, even when you're in the working world, right? Like trying different tactics. You've obviously done that a million times very successfully, but it's not always like you know exactly how it's going to go. You have to try different things to know what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And then you just keep iterating and iterating.
Okay, so you did that in college. What did you do the rest of college in terms of internships? It sounds like you're someone that was working every summer and trying to figure it out.
Oh, my favorite job ever in my entire life. I worked at the San Diego Yacht Club as a server, which was amazing. So I started doing that maybe my sophomore year of college. I spent the summer there. It was the best. Automatic 20% gratuity. It was only open from 11 to 2 and 5 to 9. And everybody who went there was like super generous and nice. And they were like, oh, let me give you $100 tip. And I thought, I have actually cracked the code.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you think like after doing the Morgan Stanley thing, you knew you didn't want to be in finance? What did you start leaning towards?
I started just being like interested in trying different things because I'd done the Live Nation thing. I'd done the Morgan Stanley thing. I knew that I wanted to work in some kind of a corporate environment. So I was looking into different companies that were doing like college recruiting. My first job actually was for Target Corporate, something that I did for 1 year. And a lot of people from my college did that. It was interesting. There was this big kickoff in Minneapolis and like all of that. Then you went to these different districts, which is actually a lot of responsibility for someone right out of college. Because you were like looking at like these massive P&Ls across like different store districts. It was very analytical in that way. And I really, learned a ton there. Now I think back to like, wow, that's a lot of responsibility for a kid who's 22 years old, especially because you'd have these people who'd been like managers at the stores for like 20 years, like reporting to you. And you're like, where's aisle 7? Like, just because you had a college degree, which is kind of interesting in its own world. But I learned a lot there about supply chain, about logistics. So much of what goes into big box retail, especially at the time when there was no like Amazon Prime, is really about optimizing the supply chain and making sure you have things in stock. And the thing that I became most interested in there was like the end caps were a huge way to move different products. And you had certain level of discretion on what you wanted to put on the end caps if you wanted to get rid of something or you had excess or whatever. And I was like, very interested in that. The flyers at the time were another thing that like really drove people into the store of, the buy one, get one free on XYZ. And I would talk to, do store visits and talk to different consumers around different things. And that really got me, one, to see that world was shifting, and two, to understand that I really had a passion for like what drives these consumers in here and to pick which brand, et cetera. So I think that kind of set up the opportunity for me to join Google, which at the time in the 2012 era was like the coolest company. The internship had recently come out. I was like, free breakfast every day. That's insane. I almost felt like I did at the San Diego Yacht Club, where like I have cracked the code. They will give me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because I wasn't smart enough to realize that they were just doing that so I would work all the time.
Yeah.
That dawned on me a few years in. But I'd been at Target and it was amazing. I had a friend who worked at Google. She was like, this is great. She was in the legal department. They had their own version of right out of college program, which was called their business associates program. That was 2 years and kind of a rotational gig. And I did that. And that I think really changed my life in terms of opening up just a world of possibilities and being frankly at the right place at the right time. San Francisco in early 2012 was an amazing place to be. It'd be hard to have a career failure at that point.
Sure.
And that's where I met my husband, who had gone to Berkeley, and he was working in investment banking, and I was working in tech. And I think, I think a lot about timing, and just timing being everything in so many cases. We were graduated at a great time. We entered the workforce at a great time. We lived in a great city that a lot of my friends from that era are now our clients at Vayner. They're, executives that I do business with. And, it's just people that personally and almost like grow up with together. And then you see them resurface as C-suite execs at Fortune 500 companies now.
Yeah, it's pretty fun to hit that full circle where like your friends are now the people running those companies you were applying to back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. And so how long were you at Target, by the way?
Exactly 1 year, because I was like, I don't want to like not be there for a full year, but because I was worried it would look bad on my resume. And I did really enjoy it. There were parts of it that I really liked. I liked the responsibility, and that didn't intimidate me. But retail in general, like just because Amazon was just starting and they're like, Amazon's a threat. And I was like, wait, why would someone come drive here to buy paper towels when you can just
Yeah.
get them delivered to your house? It
Yeah.
just automatically to me was like, oh, that is going to make a lot of sense for
Yeah.
people to do that. I better skate to where the puck is going with
Yeah.
everything coming online. Because in Target hit, by the way, in the last 15 years has done an amazing job becoming much more digital first, app first, social first. But at the time, like they were, very brick
Yeah.
and mortar.
Yeah. It was just starting in that sense. They hadn't probably not enough pressure to make that change yet.
Exactly.
And how long did you go to Google for?
I was there for 7.5 years. So
You
it was
were
amazing.
awesome.
Did a bunch of different things and can't say enough good things about the chance to work at Google, especially then. Now it's a much bigger company. But that's where I met our good friend, Jeff Nicholson.
Yeah.
In my start class was a number of people who, have become very, very dear friends over the years. When I opened Vayner in Asia, our second client was actually someone who was in my start class. She was still at Google and they hired us. So I'll say that, those moments really matter in fostering connections and staying in touch with people.
Yeah, I was just asked on a podcast, how do I invest in myself? And honestly, I don't think I've ever I've never looked at that, but everyone talks about reading and, mastermind talks. I was like going to events and meeting people.
Yes.
That is the more you can, and they all, there's cliches like your network is your net worth, but I think people think network is like running around handing out business cards versus like making friends and relationships and how far that can go. That's not transactional, but it ends up being something.
1,000%, especially it's almost like the miracle of compound interest. It's like the miracle of compound relationships. Oh, that person who was in my start class, 12 years ago, I'm going to drop them a message and of course they'll be happy to do me a favor. And I'm happy to do them a favor, by the way.
Right.
Hey, you need something. Oh, your nanny needs a job. It's an internship at Vayner. I got you. Little things like that do really, really pay off, especially because the world is smaller than you think.
100%. And that is a big one. So did you go straight from Google to opening Vayner Asia?
No. So I was at Google and I was familiar with VaynerMedia, especially the media team. So John and Jeff at the time. And I loved Google. It had been amazing. I'd been in San Francisco. I was in Mountain View, the headquarters for a few years. I got to a rotation in Brazil. It was just an incredible company. And
before I make you go ahead of it, what did you do at Google? You did the 2-year program, and then what did you get? What part of Google were you in?
Then I moved into the AdWords team, the agency team, and I did that for 2 years. Then I moved into what was at the time called DoubleClick, which is now called Google Marketing Platform. And they were basically offloading the direct clients who had direct contracts with DoubleClick into these resellers. And the resellers were like Mighty Hive and AdSwerve and, Jellyfish and others. You were probably familiar with them. And that was a big migration that took 2 years, kind of like an operational moving the contracts and things like that. So I got to do that. And that was really awesome and fun and interesting. And Vayner was a partner who was interested in doing that. And through that, I got to know them. I forgot about a year and a half where I did marketing, the media lab at Google, which was great. And by the way, we work with them now. So again, it's a small world. My manager at the time is actually married to someone who's a Vayner client. So we had one of those small world stories a few years ago because she would often speak about her husband, Bob, in a way, like I knew him, but I was like, who is this person she's referring to? And then at a Super Bowl party, he was like, Avery, it's been so long. I was like, oh my God, I made that connection finally. I was on the media lab for a short time and then moved into DoubleClick, and that was great. And I got to know the Vayner guys through that. And immediately I was struck by the fact that I could tell that they were doing things different. And there was every other agency who I'd had exposure to. And then Vayner just felt extremely different and differentiated. And I liked that. I, didn't know exactly why, but I knew I was attracted to that. And Gary came and did a keynote at one of our offsites. And he's a very convincing person,
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, this dude, there's something to him. And he was like, come work at Vayner for a year or two. I was like, I want to be brand side. I don't want to work in an ad agency. This is, not going to be my path. And he's like, great, just do it for 2 years. You're going to learn more in 2 years working at Vayner than you will 10 years working at Google. My initial plan was I'm going to go to Vayner for 2 years and go back to Google because I had been on a very good trajectory there. And, my directors and VPs were like, you're always welcome back. They
Nice.
still joke with me that, which is funny.
You're still always welcome back.
And yes, because now I'm the client, which is funny. And I ended up, really liking it. I was at Vayner in New York for a couple of months, and we were right after I started, we won our biggest piece of business ever, which wasn't because of me, but like,
Can you share what that was?
Mondelez International. So
Awesome.
that was a landmark transformative win for the agency. We had to hire a ton of people. We had to build new capabilities, and I'm so grateful for the trust that their team put in us. Of course, like we delivered on it. We still have it. So it's still a strong and very important piece of business for us. But it was a very intense onboarding process, a lot of like weekends at the office with the team, really getting things to like put our very, very best foot forward. And that, I don't know, I'll jokingly call it trauma bonding. Really, I think, put a lot of us very close together, and we did something that we'd never done before, and that felt very special. And, we still joke about those days till now.
And what were you doing at that point? When you first joined, what was your role?
I was a VP on the media side.
Okay.
And because I had worked at Google, I knew how like Google worked and DoubleClick worked. And I had also had a lot more like structured templates and examples. I was like, oh, this is how we should do performance reviews. Oh, like, cause I just like had all the references from Google, which has invested millions of dollars into this. It's like, oh, we should use a trafficking sheet like this. I was used to working in an extremely structured environment, which was pretty different from Vayner at the time.
I imagine so.
So they were like, Avery's a genius. She knows about performance templates and whatnot, which of course now we've totally adopted and formalized in a real way. But that was something that I was able to take that big company knowledge and bring it to, a 700-person agency that was in hyper growth mode. I also learned just so much because at Google, each person has like kind of a specialized little piece that they do that goes into the whole machine. At Vayner, it's like, oh no, it's kind of soup to nuts. You're in charge of that. I think it was a bit of trial by fire. And my first 6 months at Vayner were very challenging. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is for me. And just the hours workload wise versus, being in a tech platform, very different, meaning more. I think my first 6 months, I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into? I just took a pay cut to do way more work, and it's way harder. But within, I would say, a year, I was like, this is such a great opportunity. And the best opportunity that, came to me very quickly was through our relationship with a few clients. They were curious about our international expansion capabilities and game plan. So we're like, okay, we have an office in London that was like 20 people. The next one is logically Singapore. And I went with Gary on a speaking trip that he had planned in like April of 2019. It might have been March, but and we were like, let's see if we should maybe open an office here. And I was like, I'll do it. By the way, I knew 0 people in Singapore. We had 0 clients there. And
I think I met you a few months later in Singapore.
Yes, that's right. And it was like, we had no idea what we were doing, but it was just me and one person who spoke both Mandarin and Japanese. And the meeting, like Gary was there for a day. We had like one promising meeting, and the guy was like, yeah, like, let's do something together. If you set up shop here. And Gary, said something to the effect of like, okay, great. Like, let's do it. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I did. And I moved there in probably May of 2019. And within 2 years, we had 170 people. We were agency of the year. We were working with Subway, P&G, YouTube, Disney Plus, Prudential, which is their biggest insurer, National Australia Bank in Australia. It was just amazing. And a number of other just incredible brands, the Singapore government. What
do you think drove that quick? Was it Gary's visibility, or was it, they needed something different?
Gary didn't go back to Singapore for 6 years.
Okay. So there you go. So no, I mean, other than a little bit of his brand, but no.
But that's, I think there's awareness at a very high level of Gary. But that was another huge shift, is like, even in our pitch deck, like in the US, it's slide 1 is like founded by Gary V. After like 7 times where like no one knew what I was talking about, I just took that slide out in Singapore, because understandably, like, they don't follow American media the same way that we do as Americans. So very quickly, we realized we needed to pivot the way that we were communicating about the agency, because like leading with like started by a wine guy from New Jersey really doesn't land the same way that it does in the US. And I think I was fortunate. My third hire was this incredible, like very legendary creative, guy called Vijay Anand. And because we had this, initial work with this P&G brand, which is called SK2, I was like, we need to hire the best creative I can possibly find. And Vijay was amazing. He was the ECD at Gojek, which was a client that we were pitching. And the CMO of Yacht, as we were like sort of chatting about doing work together, he was like, you should hire as Vijay. And I talked to Vijay and he was amazing. And, a day after our call, he flew to Singapore. He was living in Indonesia. And then we just got to work and just like won business left, right, and center for 2 years.
Nice. That's amazing. And I got to imagine like being on the perspective of the founder side, like Gary had to be head over heels about that. Like that's amazing.
Honestly, Gary doesn't get head over heels about things. I think he's like, you get a pat on the back. Good job. In once, especially by like year 2 and the revenue like was something that we had not experienced in any other market. Keep in mind, COVID happened a year after I moved, and that was super challenging.
Singapore COVID was real lockdown.
It was crazy lockdown. By the way, I also opened Bangkok, Sydney, and Tokyo all around the same time.
Wow.
And it was hectic and crazy, but I think in a lot of ways it actually was our advantage, because it really leveled the playing field of like, okay, no one has ever done this before. Not Vayner, not TBWA, not BBH. Like no one has ever done these like fully remote shoots. So we got this chance to compete that I don't think we actually would have had if it was not for COVID and everything moving to a digital first reality, which like at Vayner, we're very comfortable moving with speed. We're good to go. That created a lot of these opportunities for us to come in and, take opportunities that probably wouldn't have gone to us if it wasn't for that very unusual situation.
Yep. I just heard this. I think it's in Japanese. There's a word that means both crisis and opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just heard that one. And I was like, that's actually, I want to know what the word is, but I don't know it. But
it honestly seems like it would sort of match COVID. But,
exactly.
We grew an incredible team. I'm super proud of that. And that was, I think for me, just a like way for me to really sort of accelerate my career journey, my journey as a leader that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been like, I'll go to Singapore, just because like there was no one else.
Yeah. You took the risk, took the leap. And most people don't. Most people get comfortable. Did your husband move with you to Singapore too?
Yes, he did. So Shri and I like both love Singapore. I liked it a lot more than him. And for, there were a number of reasons. We originally planned to stay there for about 5 years, but with COVID, it was just really changed things. And especially when we were leaving, which was like the end of 2022. I mean, it was crazy. Like they weren't even letting you play music in restaurants in the subway. Like I was like, I don't know how much more I could take of this. Yeah. And another incredible opportunity came my way with the world of Web3. Because we were all online all the time on Zoom 24/7 in the 2021 era, Gary had his big idea for VFriends. And that was, he never takes 2 weeks off of Vayner. And he took like 2 weeks off to really concept VFriends and to launch that. And as that started to become clearly a big priority and started to become very successful after the launch in May, we just had clients like banging down our door of like, hey, how do I do this? And Gary was like, hey, I think you should launch Vayner NFT, which we quickly renamed Vayner 3. And, that was taking a lot of the learnings of that like sort of quick acceleration, like 0 to 100 that we did in APAC and bringing it into this new agency, Vayner 3, which, super proud of. Obviously that market went up and then went down, but like I'll really stand by all the work we did, all the incredible partners from Anheuser-Busch to PepsiCo to Coinbase to 7-Eleven to Crocs to, the list goes on and on and on, that I think, we found bold clients who wanted to try something different and had a really successful 3-year run with that. But as with all things, sometimes they run their course.
Yep. No, I mean, it was a really fun era. And I know I've talked to Gary about it. Like VFriends did so well. And like a lot of it was, as you said, it ran its course. Did you have someone to take over for you in Asia too? At that point, had you grouped someone?
So Tim Lindley, who's my head of strategy, who was amazing. I met him through my head of production. They were buds and had worked together at BBH. He was like, hey, you need to meet this guy, Tim. He's amazing. Because I wanted a head of strategy. And Tim joined and very quickly, really earned not just my trust, but the trust of the team and the clients. And as I was like, hey, I'm ready for the next adventure, we actually interviewed a lot of people with headhunters just to make sure we had the right person. We're like, he's our guy. And he's still in that role, absolutely crushing it. They just expanded it to India and, have really been leading the way in a lot of our AI offerings as the agency too. So couldn't be prouder of Tim.
And then after the NFT side, as you said, ran its course, what happened to you next?
Yeah. So after that, we sort of put a bow on it by combining it with a different agency we have called Sasha Group, because we're like, oh, this is going to make sense. We don't have to do any major retransformations. A lot of the work had pivoted from NFTs and crypto into AI. Amazing. Why doesn't this go with Sasha Group? Beautiful. And Gary was like, hey, what do you think about being the CMO of Vayner? Because I've done just different things from media to APAC to Vayner 3. And I was like, yeah, let's give that a whirl. And this is probably my most favorite job at Vayner yet, because I joke I get to do all the fun stuff of, crafting out how we want to communicate in the market, where we want to find partnerships is, folks like you and what you guys are doing at Hawk, create different partnerships, make Vayner famous, invest in our own brand, which, there's often the joke that an agency is like the cobbler with no shoes, because agencies have the worst websites and the worst social and they don't put time into it. But we really try to take that seriously at Vayner with a lean team of putting out our own content, our own podcasts, our own events, and working with partners to help make them really amazing. So, and obviously the objective of that is get more people to say, knock, knock, Vayner, can we talk? And that's working. So that's what I'm doing now.
Love it. And so I know you got to run soon. So a couple more questions for you. Number one, what's next?
That's a great question. I love where I'm at right now. And I feel like we're really hitting our stride as a Vayner marketing team, and adding PR to really supercharge that is going to be something we work on through the back part of this year. I think it's just time for PR to have a reframe, if you will, because so much of PR is just super antiquated. And actually we have a few PR clients. Clients have been like, hey, can you guys do this? And we're doing it. We hired a couple great people to help us build this PR offering. And now we are combining the knowledge of traditional PR with Vayner's special sauce. Today, actually, we had a really great hit on Inside Edition that it's great it was on Inside Edition, but it's even greater that's going viral on social using that credibility. So I'm going to spend a lot of time in the next few months cracking what modern PR means to us at Vayner. And there might be a new rebrand in the works coming too, Eric.
Very cool. Excited to see it. Well, last question for you. Given how much you've achieved, what would be something you either did hear or wish you heard that got you to be so, front-leaning and go for it, that you would give that advice to someone else?
I would say people have a short memory. I think that oftentimes individuals and leaders or potential leaders are crippled by the fear of failure. And the reality is, you and I just talked about a lot of things that have gone well, but there's plenty of things that didn't go well, and that's okay. And it's, one day at a time, one foot in front of the other. And if you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't try it, you don't make it happen. And I always try to inspire that in my teams is, and even for myself sometimes, I don't know if you're like this too, but I'll be a little nervous. I'm like, come on, you got this, just go for it. Yeah. And that's the only way it's going to happen, right? And no one ever knows 100% of how things are going to actually work out. Of course, you can have informed opinions. You need to be, smart. You need to do your research and your diligence, but you also have to be a little open to taking a risk in order to unlock that next opportunity.
100%. Well, Avery, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on HawkeTalk.
Eric, thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of what you all do. I really appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to many more fun Hawk and Vayner hangs.
Amen. Thank you.